Good Tuesday afternoon to you, 4 o'clock time for Sports for CLE. Thanks for joining us. Browns with a Players' Day off out in Los Angeles. UCLA is where they are training, getting for the Rams Sunday at 4 o'clock in Los Angeles. Still unsure who's going to be the quarterback. DTR trying to clear the concussion protocol so he would be available. Let's welcome in Fred Greetham from the Orange and Brown Report. Fred, what do you think is going to happen at quarterback this week with the Browns?
Well, it's always something in question with the Browns. It just seems like whether, it's Deshaun Watson and the drama around his shoulder and then obviously the legs and stuff. It just seems like this year and the past, there's always something with it. The concussion protocol is so quirky. In my experience, it seems like it shakes out that the guy usually misses a game. Now, Marquise Goodwin was concussed in the Cardinals game, so that's, he missed the Ravens, the Steelers, and the Broncos. So as far as we know, he's still in that protocol. So as far as DTR, I think it's his first time in the NFL, so I don't know, how severe it was. If I was a betting man, I would say Joe Flacco's going to be up for the first time for sure as the backup, and I wouldn't be surprised if he starts.
So if it is Joe Flacco, how much do you have to change with your offense? He's not as mobile as P.J. Walker. He's not as mobile as Deshaun Watson. He's not as mobile as DTR. How big of a switch is it to go to Joe Flacco?
I don't know if it's that big of a switch. I mean, they kind of sold us on the idea when they signed P.J. Walker that he had the same skill set as Deshaun Watson, Josh Dobbs, and DTR, but I don't think he's that mobile. I mean, and he's 5'10", so I think that Joe Flacco at 6'6", he's played enough in the NFL. They could do something if they wanted to change anything. Go back more to the offense that they ran with Jacoby Brissett. But I think it'll be obviously scaled down. I think it would be more run heavy. I think at this stage, it would be more of a game manager. That's what I've been calling for whenever Walker was in there, is not putting him in position to turn the ball over. And he has just continued to be a turnover machine. Even you could see a drastic difference when he went in the other day with the game still, I think it was 14-12, 17-12, something like that. And it was over basically after a couple series. I don't think Flacco's the savior, but I think he can, he's experienced enough to not turn the ball over, excessively, and to try to give the Browns defense, special teams, a chance to stay in the game and help them, win that way by kind of dominating the running game and things they didn't do against the Broncos. So that's what I think, just a simplified plan. I think they ultimately would like it to be DTR to continue. I think he did show some improvement as the game went on, and about the time he got knocked out, I think he was playing his best. He led them on a couple long drives, and unfortunately, they got field goals, and that was really the difference. Instead of it 14-14, it was 14-6. But then he started to move the ball, and they got the touchdown. So I think they do like his mobility. They like his upward trajectory. But if he's not cleared, I definitely think Joe Flacco would be a better option than to go back to P.J. Walker, because you know what you have there.
How concerning was the performance in Denver? Some of the same issues. Mobile quarterback, Russell Wilson caused some problems. The run game caused some problems. How concerning is it that this defense, which is so good, there are certain things where they struggle with?
Yeah, it is. And to me, it seems like just the slow start, on defense. I remember in the 49ers game, they gave up 80, 85-yard drive to stop or for a touchdown, and then they started to, shut them down the rest of the way. It happened in the Seahawks. They got behind quick. There was a turnover there. even in the first Ravens game. But with the Broncos jumped out to 14-0 on the first and third drive on long drives, that put the Browns in a hole because we know they're offensively challenged right now. And it was tough to play catch up ball, especially on the road. So they have to do a better job, at least limiting the field goals. And the other day, what's been their strength is getting off the field on third down. If you remember, they had a 3rd and 8, then a 34-yard pass interference penalty on Greg Newsome on a ball that was overthrown, probably wouldn't have been caught anyway. And then they had, on that 3rd and 10, they gave up a 31-yard crossing pattern to Cortland Sutton that took it down to the 3 to set up the touchdown. So penalties and mistakes, big chunk play. So they have to come out and they're going to have to, keep the Rams under control because, as we saw even with the Steelers game, you're going to have to keep the game low scoring and not put your offense behind the 8 ball, because right now, whether it's DTR, Joe Flacco, I just don't see him exploding on the scoreboard.
All right, let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason for the first time today.
This is Jim from Rochester. I tried to keep quiet as long as I could, but is anyone ready to agree with me that Mr. Stefanski is not a head coach? He may be a head coach if he gives up the offensive coordinator spot. We need to do something or the season will be gone. I understand the injuries, I truly do, but a lot of other real good coaches make sure that they come up with something different to fit the personnel. He does not. Thanks, guys. Hope you had a great Thanksgiving. I'll be talking to you. See you. Bye.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. Fred, at some point in time, when you put backups out, be it a backup quarterback, be it backups are a backup because they have deficiencies relative to the NFL style of play. If you don't believe me, look at Josh Dobbs. Look at Josh Dobbs last night. Kevin Stefanski's kind of got some hands tied behind him relative to his play calling. You don't have either of your starting tackles. You don't have your starting tailback. You don't have your starting quarterback. You don't have your backup quarterback. So you're calling around some deficiencies relative to play calling.
Yeah, I mean, Jim there, I think is a friend of mine from up in Rochester, New York. I go up there and do a lot of banquets going back there in April. And, and we've talked about this, there's always deficiencies and criticism when plays don't work. I mean, I was not a fan at all when they had the ball in the 41. You do a double, triple, reverse razzle dazzle with your third string running back, and you were 21 yards behind the 8 ball before you even fumbled it. But you could say they're 7-4, and you wonder how many coaches could have a team 7-4 without Deshaun Watson, without Nick Chubb, without Jack Conklin, without Jedrick Wills, 4 key players on your offense. So, as you said, I fault them for not having a veteran backup quarterback back, earlier in the season in case, Watson was dinged up, or even if he had to miss a couple games. As it is, he missed several and then he lost for the season. But I don't know. I mean, you can look at both sides. He's kept this team together, maybe not so much play calling, but as far as just the overall head coach and managing it, we'll have to see how it plays out. I mean, they're 7-4. I remember when the Browns were 7-4 a few years ago with Brian Hoyer, and the regime then decided to switch to Johnny Manziel. I think they finished 7-9. This would be a disaster if the Browns, collapse to that degree and lose, all of their games or all but one, and lose out on this opportunity to make the playoffs. Last week, they had an 86% chance to make the playoffs. It dropped to 68%, but it's still very good. And with 6 games to go, they have 4 games against losing record teams. So Kevin Stefanski needs to find a way to put this team in position, regardless of the roster, and beat the teams that they should beat in the final 6 games. I don't think there's any games on the schedule they cannot win. Of course, they're all going to be tough because of their current status, but I think this is where he'll earn his stripes going from here on out. And and sometimes when you call that double reverse razzle dazzle and it goes for 30 yards, you think it's a tremendous call, but obviously it was a big failure the other day.
Fred Greetham from the Orange and Brown Report now. Going to step aside, take a quick timeout. Other side of the break, we'll continue to talk Browns. Look what it might take to get them into the playoffs. Sports for CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
An Ohio lottery machine. The holiday scratch-offs are worth hundreds of millions of dollars.
Non-winning tickets have a second chance.
Is that Miriam Bright? The first ever $1 million holiday game! Hello? You can get them now? I'm gonna go ask if I can play.
We continue talking Browns with Fred Greetham, senior analyst from the Orange and Brown Report. Mike Florio, Chris Sims from Pro Football Talk about the Browns after that loss to the Broncos.
These injuries, coupled that with Deshaun Watson a few weeks ago, I mean, they're battling against some bad luck, certainly. And they're a team that doesn't have a ton of wiggle room. We know they want to play a game of, run the ball, defense make a few plays. That's going to help us win the game. And Myles Garrett is the guy that is the leader in chaos for their defense and making plays and strip sacks and everything we've talked about there. Right? The quarterback situation, you're exactly right. It might be a little too early for Flacco. PJ Walker did come in and look good yesterday, but we'll be interested to see that move there and what they do with the quarterback situation. DTR did some good things. He knows how to play the position of quarterback, that's for sure. But damn, did it not have Amari Cooper off of that as well, who's the go-to definite big play receiver of that offense? Those are some big injuries in that game yesterday. We'll see if they can weather the storm. And like you said, they got some tough tests here down the stretch to try to stay in this AFC playoff picture.
They need DTR back, even though he was the backup anyway. Look, I keep going back to quarterback play may be the difference as to who gets in and who gets out, and the Browns may just slip right out of this. They're only a game ahead of that 6-5 cluster.
Right.
And it's kind of what we were talking about, Fred. They can't let it completely get away from them. They got to go out and win ugly. Steelers have done that all year. Win ugly.
Yeah, they do. And I have a story coming out later today or first thing tomorrow about this, their quest for the playoffs, why I think it's so important. Despite a lot of fans wouldn't think you really have a chance to win the Super Bowl without Deshaun Watson, without Nick Chubb and the guys that they've had injury-wise. But I do think for the psyche, when you're 7-3, now 7-4, and you're right there, probably having to just split, find 3 wins out of 6, and you could get in the playoffs. I think that would really excite the fan base even for 2024. But anything can happen, obviously, if you get in the playoffs and you get hot at the right time. But I just think that the Rams and these next 2 games, the Rams on the road and then playing the Jaguars at home, is going to be tough. But you look at overall, 4 of the 6 remaining games are against teams with losing records. They have losing records for a reason, so they're winnable games. And you ought to be able to find 3 wins on there. I look at the Bears. I look at the Jets and the Bengals. The Jets, Aaron Rodgers is still talking about coming back. Right now, the Jets are 4-7. If they lose one of these games here in the next 2-3 weeks, I do not know why in the world he would want to come back and risk losing 2024. So I see the Jets, by the time the Browns get to that, as being similar to where they're at now. And then the Bengals, they looked pathetic the other day without Joe Burrow, and they'll probably be playing their season out. So I mean, the Browns just got to stay the course. They got to, like you said, weather the storm. They have to, get back to what got them here, playing great defense, special teams, and hope you can cobble together an offense to, to not turn the ball over and have a chance to win some games. That's been the whole year, and it reared its ugly head again last week. They turned the ball over 3 times and lost the turnover battle. And they've been hovering at the bottom in that department all year. And so they've got to take care of the ball. And if the defense and special teams can play, then hopefully the offense can do enough to win.
Yeah, to your point, they've turned the ball over more than anybody in the NFL, and they're tied for 3rd worst in turnover margin. All right, this is from CBS Sports, ranking AFC wildcard contenders. They go Texans 1, Bills 2, Broncos and Steelers 3 and 4. They said Browns are 5. Cleveland barely got by the hapless Steelers, and then were blown out by the Broncos this past week. Next up for the Browns, underrated Rams and Jaguars. Fred, again, the Rams and the Jaguars, they match up much better with. Russell Wilson isn't playing. A Russell Wilson type quarterback is not playing quarterback for the Rams. And even Trevor Lawrence is not the same, for whatever reason. Mobile quarterbacks that can avoid this pressure give the Browns problems. That ain't Matthew Stafford, and it's not really Trevor Lawrence.
That's what I said going into the Broncos game. They had the worst rushing defense in the NFL, giving up 160 yards, 32nd. And DTR, his strength, in my opinion, especially as a rookie, is his ability to scramble and to run. The Browns raved about him mimicking Lamar Jackson to the defense in the lead up to the Ravens game. And that was one of the reasons they decided to go with him. I really thought they would implement more of that style of game for him to make things simpler for him, to just use his legs, run out of the pocket. Obviously, don't put yourself in harm's way, but run to the sideline, either dump it off or pick up 5, 6, 7 yards. They started a little bit the other day, but Russell Wilson had more carries than any Browns running back. And Jerome Ford averaged over 7 yards a carry the other day, but he only had 9 rushes. Russell Wilson ran the ball 11 times. I mean, he's 32, 33 years old, and that really set the tone in carving up the Browns defense in the first half. So I don't know why you wouldn't just, obviously if DTR doesn't play, you can't do it. But if he plays, that certainly is what I would start with instead of having him throw the ball all over the field.
Well, to your point, so here's this comes from Daryl Ryder, Browns beat reporter. Browns were 6-13, 78 yards passing on first down. They ran it 8 times for 38 yards. That includes one of those fumbles with DTR in the game. DTR threw it 29 times versus 15 carries combined for Ford and Hunt through 3 quarters against the number 32 ranked defense. Now, having said that, you can't say run the ball into an 8 or 9 man box unless you do it with the quarterback like they were doing with Russell Wilson. I'm not advocating running the ball into a stacked box with Jerome Ford or Kareem Hunt. Nick Chubb didn't have a lot of success doing it. Those 2 guys certainly aren't. But you got to scheme around it.
Yeah, well, that's clearly what teams are going to do. They're going to make the rookie, as rookies do, they throw it into coverage and they get tricked and they get intercepted or make mistakes. That's why I just think, I might be naive, but when a guy runs for 1,800 yards in college, that was a question of Lamar Jackson coming out of college. He was just a running quarterback. Obviously, he can throw the ball and so forth, but with DTR, I would think that would be the best bet to get him going is not running up the middle. Once in a while, you can do a quarterback draw, but obviously that's how Watson originally got hurt, is rolling them out, where you use the sideline to get tackled instead of by a 250-pound linebacker or defensive tackle chasing you down. So, yeah, obviously, if he's not playing, that changes things. They're going to stop Flacco in the running game again and make him throw because you don't have a mobile guy back there, and they're going to try to beat the tackles, that have had trouble on edge rushers. So, you have what you have, but as far as I just don't understand, why you wouldn't use the mobility. That's one of the reasons you took him, because he had similar characteristics to Deshaun Watson. And when he was injured the first time, Watson, they said they can't take it out of his game. He's still going to run. Well, you can't take it out of DTR's game. Have him run and use his legs to pick up first downs.
So this is also interesting. PFF credited Browns receivers with 3 drops Sunday on 42 attempts, 13% of the targets attempted. DTR now leads NFL with 12.1% drop rate from his receivers. You need the receivers have got to help the rookie out too. That was critical. Now some of them are off target. That's a whole different story. Veterans have to catch the ball. David Njoku got to catch the ball. You got to help the rookie quarterback out when he's in there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, those are killers, drive killers, almost like a holding penalty when you have a 1st and 10 drop, instead of 2nd and short or whatever. It's just not acceptable. When you're getting paid to catch the ball, you can't have alligator arms. You have to catch the ball and come down with it. I mean, a positive in that game, everybody was kind of waiting to see if Cedric Tillman had anything. And to me, he was one of the bright spots on offense. As he caught some balls, contested and looked like he had strong hands holding the ball, high topping it and bringing it in, high pointing it and bringing it down and hanging on. He's been blocking pretty well, but you brought him in to be, a receiver. And so I think they could build on that, all the way around. But you got to get your quarterback help, especially when he's a rookie. I don't think he's throwing a ball that's too hot to handle.
No, it's concentration and lapses on the receivers. I would agree with you. Fred Greetham and I from the Orange and Brown Report going to step aside, take one more time out, other side of the break, back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. More about the game against the Rams coming up. Sports4CLE, be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns with Fred Greetham from the Orange and Brown Report. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
I think it's time the Cleveland media call out Kevin Stefanski on his terrible play calling. He's not a play caller. He's barely a coach. I've said it before and I'll say it again. Fire him.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. Fred, I disagree. I didn't agree with some of the play calling. I'm with you with the reverse. By and large, you haven't had your running back, your right tackle, your quarterback. You're going to end up probably starting 4 quarterbacks. Team is 7-4. They're right in the middle of the playoff hunt. I think it's ludicrous that you want to fire the head coach. Absolutely ludicrous.
Yeah, I mean, it's just the stage we're in. The Steelers hadn't fired somebody in mid-season since 1941, I read, when they fired their offensive coordinator. And that had to be a bold move, and they got a shot in the arm the other day. But, yeah, I just don't know what else you can do. I mean, we've talked about this, that Alex Van Pelt, offensive coordinator now, this is his 4th year. Why he can't call the plays, I don't know. He did in the playoff game. But as far as managing, the front office, the ownership has to feel that Kevin Stefanski, one of his strengths is making play calls. And for the most part, I think he's done a pretty good job. You pick out every game, ones you scratch your head. You think of the 3rd and 3 in Seattle, and you think of different ones the other day against the Broncos. But by and large, if the players don't execute the play, it doesn't matter what you call, it's not going to work. So, I do think what's been disappointing this year, we were expecting a much better offense. I mean, they've been down at the bottom in offense all year. The reason they're 7-4 is because the defense has been top 5 all year and the special teams as well. But the offense, which was supposed to be, right at the top of the league, has been near the bottom of the league due to injury, due to a number of things. But I don't know if we've ever seen the offense that they were projecting, back in training camp and so forth. But I do think it's too early. I think you need to see how the season plays out. I don't know if anybody had high expectations when the team lost their quarterback, for the season, lost Nick Chubb. I mean, a lot of fans talked to me this season, you felt like was over when you lost Nick Chubb, because going forward, even if you made the playoffs, how are you going to win the Super Bowl without Nick Chubb, or Jack Conklin, and obviously with the quarterback, you were hoping he would be able to overcompensate for that. So, yeah, I think he's done the best he can with what they have, and let's just see what they do. If they can get in the playoffs somehow, some way, I think that would be a masterful job by the head coach.
I would agree. All right, let's turn our attention to the Rams. This is a team. Matthew Stafford is a really good quarterback, but he is the type of quarterback that has struggled against this defense. Big arm guy like Brock Purdy struggled against the Browns defense. Stafford is not mobile. He does have a strong arm. I mean, he does have good receivers. When you look at this, what's the key to this game against the Rams coming up Sunday?
Yeah, I think that you said it. I mean, they're getting healthy. Cooper Kupp, I think, is playing again, and the running back Kyron Williams, he had a big game last week, and I think they were missing some guys early. Matthew Stafford, even back to his days with the Lions, always plagued the Browns whenever they play. I just think it's going to be a tough game, but it will be a different approach. The defense seems to rise to the occasion more against the drop back, heavy-armed quarterbacks as opposed to the mobile, like Russell Wilson. Once you think you got him pinned down 3rd and long, he takes off and gets a first down. The Lamar Jacksons, different ones like that. So I think that Jim Schwartz out there in L.A., they'll get him refocused. They need to get a little health. Hopefully Denzel Ward would be able to come back. They're banged up on both sides of the ball, but the defense, seems to be getting the injuries lately. So there's no question. They're going to, based on where they're at, the defense is going to have to limit the Rams and allow them to stay close so the offense can hopefully play the field position game, get some field goals, get a turnover too, have a short field. It would just help if the defense could get some takeaways this week. I was encouraged with JOK's game. I thought he has really emerged this year, especially last week. He was all over the field. He was playing like, everybody expected when he was drafted. He seems to be thriving in this defense under Jim Schwartz. Now, let's take the next step with some of the other guys and see if they can get after Stafford and not let him have the time to throw downfield.
Are there areas with the Rams that you think the Browns can exploit, offensively, defensively? Are there areas that match up well for the Browns, do you think?
Well, I think that, the Browns' strength right now is their running game. They didn't show it last week. They didn't, they were, like I said, they were going against a 160-yard a game, 32nd ranked rushing defense, and they only had 10 yards in the first quarter, and they didn't really attempt much. They did then start picking it up, but I just think you have to, go out there, depending on who's the quarterback. I don't think if it's Joe Flacco, you're going to come out and have him throw the ball all over the field. So you want to get the running game going. Now, again, if they stack the box like the Broncos did, then you just have to anticipate that, find, where Flacco can drop, check it down, to the backs or the easy completions on quick slants and things like that. But as far as, I just think that the Browns are where they're at now, and I think their strength is their interior offensive line. And I would just run behind them with Ford and Hunt and try to control the clock, play the field position game.
I'm with you. Fred Greetham, senior analyst for the Orange and Brown Report, as always. Great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Fred.
All right, Dave. Thanks for having me.
Fred Greetham, make sure you check him out. Always really good stuff. Senior analyst for the Orange and Brown Report. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. We continue talking Browns. Casey Kinnamon from Dog Pound Daily Network 216 straight ahead. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program is dedicated to recognizing exceptional students, teachers, and schools throughout Ohio. Scan the QR code on screen to nominate students and teachers as Academic All-Stars and Teachers of the Month. They must be currently enrolled or teach in grades K through 12. Is your K through 12 school developing students' literacy skills to achieve success in reading? If so, you can nominate your school for the School of the Year. Students can win $100, teachers can win $500, and schools can win $2,500. Scan the QR code, fill out the forms, and nominate deserving students, teachers, and schools today. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program takes pride in honoring exceptional students, teachers, and schools across Ohio. Submit your nomination today. It's fun, fast, and free. We continue talking Browns on Sports4CLE. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hi, Dave. I have a question about the medical staff. You have Marquise Goodwin, which is a key deep threat. He's still on the concussion protocol. We see the severity of Denzel Ward out multiple games. Also, Deshaun Watson, the howling of that. It's just perplexing, and I just don't have no faith in Haslem. I think he has his hands all over this. And when you see a offense that can't move the ball, it's going to wear down the defense. That's a recipe for failure and injury. And I don't think the Browns will ever have any success unless we get new ownership. That's just my opinion. Thank you for taking my call.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. Let's welcome in Casey Kinnamon, Dog Pound Daily Network 216. Casey, again, a lot of people have a lot of different opinions. Jimmy Haslam is spending more money than any other owner. Relative to the injuries, it seems like the Browns always have a lot of injuries, but I think that's because we follow the Browns more closely than any other team.
Yeah, if you're looking at Jimmy, if you wanted to criticize him for his past mistakes from like when he bought the team to 2019, you'd have justification and plenty of things to point to. But since 2020, he took that step back, just kind of took the role as being the pockets of the team. And like you said, they lead the league in cash spending by a mile, and that gives their team the best competitive advantage they can give from the salary cap perspective. None of this stuff, whatever's going on behind the scenes, that goes on in every organization. We're not hearing about it. It's not front page news. He's not in the media every week, pulling strings. So I really can't fault Haslam. As far as the injuries, like you said, we follow the team, so it feels like we have more bad luck than most teams. But it's the league, it's like Marquise Goodwin's a concussion. What are you going to do? He's got a clear protocol. I do wish it wasn't his shoulder, because this team just seems to have a blind spot when it comes to diagnosing shoulder injuries in general. And we've just been burnt so many times in the past with shoulders that I wish Miles' injury was anything but a shoulder, to be honest with you.
So, and again, Cleveland fans want an owner that will spend more than anybody. You have one. It's just hidden behind restructuring and a front office that has figured out how to allow him to spend more. Again, Jimmy Haslam is spending more money by a lot than any other owner on his football team. So just let that sink in for a minute. some moves behind the scenes today, minor moves, if you will. They released Kenyon Drake from the practice squad. They signed John Kelly back to the practice squad. Thomas Graham, a cornerback, waived from the injured reserve. Again, you know, Kelly's a guy they're familiar with, probably more comfortable with if they need him in a pinch.
Yeah, this team loves familiarity. Like if they got faith in you, they'll bring you back time and time again. John Kelly's been floating around the practice squad, I think, going on 4 years now. They're comfortable with him. If he had to play in the pinch, I don't think they'd have any reservations.
All right, this from the Bleacher Report. 3 takeaways from the Broncos' Week 12 loss for the Browns. Defensive aggressiveness works against the Browns early in games. Number 2, Kevin Stefanski can't afford to outcoach himself. And number 3, Dorian Thompson-Robinson and Myles Garrett injuries loom large. Now, you know, those are one's in concussion protocol, one's day-to-day relative to the injuries. There always is 1 or 2 plays with Kevin Stefanski where you're like, oh, I wish he wouldn't have done that.
Yeah, but you're going to have that with every single head coach.
Yep.
Like you said, because we follow this team, it just feels like, oh, it's that guy. But look around the league. You know, since Vince Lombardi to Kyle Shanahan, every team has that week in, week out. For me, number 3 on that list is number 1 is the injuries. This team has overcame adversity so many times, and so much of that has been surrounded by the injuries. It just felt like there was a tipping point in the game where it became too much. You know, like, and this team has adopted that next man up mentality and truly embraced it. But when the next man up is a 3rd or 4th stringer or someone you had to sign off the street to play, sometimes it becomes too much. So for me, this is all about getting healthy. Like, you're already going to have to go to LA with a MASH unit and try to gut out a win. So you got to get as healthy as humanly possible at this stage in the season. And that's hard for any NFL team.
The other thing I'll say, you know, you don't have Nick Chubb. That was the big piece of this. You don't have Deshaun Watson. Those are 1 and 1A that this offense is designed around. Now you don't have your tackles either. Kevin Stefanski, again, I don't agree with every call. You're 7-4, and you haven't had those guys much of the year. That's a hell of a coaching job, and you're still finding ways to score points.
If you would have told the Cleveland Browns fan base, you're going to be without Nick Chubb, Deshaun Watson, Jack Conklin, Joel Bitonio is going to miss games, Denzel is going to miss. No way 7-4 sounds feasible. You'd be struggling to find yourself getting 7 wins in an entire season if you had that information in front of you. So to think of everything they've overcame and still got to this point where they're 7-4 in contention for a playoff spot, I think some credit needs to be given to the coaching staff.
All right. We have no idea if Dorian Thompson-Robinson will clear concussion protocol. Nobody does. Anybody that tells you they know, they're lying at this point. Now, assuming, let's play the game, if he does clear concussion protocol and Joe Flacco is reasonably comfortable in this offense, is it DTR or is it Joe Flacco?
It's a matter of timing, Dave. Like, if you tell me he's going to clear concussion protocol Friday night, then I got to go with Flacco. For me, it comes down to this, and it stinks because DTR showed me so much on Sunday that you could build around. You know, the word arm talent gets thrown around a lot. This kid truly has it. Played well in high leverage moment, made a lot of tight window throws. If anything, the people around him let him down. But he needs reps, point blank, period. You know, he needs those Wednesday, Thursday, Friday red zone install reps. If he can't get those, I don't want to send that kid out there flying blind because I think that gives him a prime candidate to be a regression in this next coming week. So if he doesn't clear soon, then I think you just roll with Flacco.
Are you of the mindset like I am that I'd go Flacco over P.J. Walker unless he just is struggling to pick it up?
That's not even a question to me, Dave. They can't put the ball back in P.J. Walker's hands. I don't know if my heart can take it.
All right. Take a look at this. So again, this is a very interesting number with Kevin Stefanski. 19-7 after a loss. What that tells you is more than almost 3-1, he avoids 2-game losing streaks. That's the mark of a pretty good coach and a guy that has his team behind him.
Yeah, I mean, that's a large enough sample size that they bounce back well from losses. This one will be tougher than most. Back-to-back road games, you're decimated as far as injuries go. This is one, in my opinion, you have to get. There's some winnable games coming up on the schedule, but you can't afford to let anything slip through your fingers. LA is definitely beatable, even with a mass unit. If this defense comes to play, you can do that. 19-7 after a loss, that's encouraging.
Now, the other thing is, I don't think there is a game, even with their offense. The Texans, you may struggle because they're going to put points. I think the Jaguars are not a team that I think, and it all deals with the quarterbacks. If you do not have a mobile quarterback, they are in for a long game with this defensive line and the pressure.
Yeah, no, we're in lockstep. I look at the schedule, and every game is winnable from here on out. The Jacksonville game feels winnable to me because the Browns' defense is a totally different unit at home as they are on the road. You get those guys at home after a road trip, I think they're going to hunt, like you said. And Lawrence is athletic, but he likes to win. He likes to go with his arm. He'll scramble with his legs, especially around the red zone. That's somewhere you have to watch him. But I have faith in the Browns' defense at home. The Texans game is the trickiest to me because it's on the road, because they've been putting up a lot of points, and it's just a different environment. But every game on the schedule, if you look here on out, is completely winnable. And I think that you can get 4 of the next 6. That's the way I look at this.
Casey Kinnamon from Dog Pound Daily, Network 216, and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, we head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. Sports for CLE, we'll be right back. Stay with us.
An Ohio lottery machine. The holiday scratch-offs are worth hundreds of millions of dollars.
Non-winning tickets have a second chance. Is that Miriam Bright? The first ever $1 million holiday game! No. You can get them now? I'm gonna go ask if I can play.
We continue talking Browns with Casey Kinnamon from Dog Pound Daily and Network 216. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
What's going on, Dave? This is Darrell from Cleveland, Ohio. Kevin Stefanski is a bad play caller. He don't know when to what. That was the last place team in the NFL against the run. We supposed to ran the ball.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. Casey, again, we've heard that a lot. Should they have run the ball? Probably. But you're running into 6-man front, 2 linebackers, a single high safety, man-to-man coverage on the outside. If your quarterback can't throw against that, we got bigger problems than you should run the football. Those are daring your quarterback. We don't think your quarterback can beat us. And they got to beat him in that coverage.
Yeah, and in my opinion, it was the receivers that let the quarterback down in those moments. I do wish there was a greater emphasis early in the game to run the ball, but the game script dictates everything. And after you're down 14 because your defense is giving up points, you can't continue just to run into that kind of a front, and you have to take chances throwing the ball. And you've seen them being able to climb up out of that situation and throwing the ball. That's what they did in the middle 8 minutes of the game, up until the point where DTR got hurt. And I know I've seen so much conjecture online about that reverse, and it was ugly, point blank. It was an ugly thing. But you have to understand what was going on at the time, man. They were trying to catch lightning in a bottle. You got P.J. Walker out there. He knew he was limited. He was just trying to get a spark. My fault isn't in the play call as much as the personnel usage. That is, in my opinion, that's not the time to get Pierre Strong his very first touch of the game. And as fans, we could say it's a bad play call, but the other team made a play. DJ Jones made a play. He wasn't on anyone's radar. We weren't talking about him leading the game. He sniffed that out and made a play. Do you think other teams blame their offensive line coach when Miles gets a sack? No. Sometimes players make plays, and you got to swing big when you're playing with your, what is essentially your 4th string quarterback. You got to do what you got to do, man. You literally, they were just trying to make anything happen and just inject some offense, and it didn't work out because it's not going to work out every time. That's the bottom line.
The other thing is they're throwing the ball up in the air, and they were very careless with that. The one thing I will say, and I've watched it a couple of times, they got him over pursuing. There was a lane where he could have hit it, and it could have been a big gain. But you can't throw the ball. I mean, he did everything but throw the ball behind his back to him. I mean, it was not take care of the football. That's 1, 2, and 3.
Those two guys did not practice that play that week.
Right.
He showed up real quick.
Yeah. Take care of the football. All right, this is very interesting. So early down success of NFL teams chart. So x-axis is moving the sticks before third down. Y-axis is average yards to go on third down. And the Browns are in the bad category in this, which tells you they're not having success on first and second down. They're averaging over 7.5 yards to go on third down. And that less than 45% of the time are they converting that. So it's a struggle. You don't want to be in third and 7.5, especially when you are playing with a rookie fifth-round quarterback or P.J. Walker, and that's one of the reasons they've struggled.
Yeah, you don't want that if it was Deshaun Watson.
Right. Well,
37.5 is a recipe for disaster. The further you go down that depth chart, man, you need that 3rd and 1, 3rd and 2.
Right.
When you're 3rd and 7, you're just opening yourself up for bad things to happen, and that's what you're seeing. Dude, when you have to dictate, you can be either or. You can be pass or you can be run. 3rd and 7. You're not doing that. You're telling the other team you're going to pass, which means guys on the edge pin their ears back, which means you're going to get more coverage. You're going to get linebackers dropping in the lanes and making everything tougher. So you have to do yourself a favor and gain yards on first down so you can just keep it at a manageable down and distance to give whoever's taking snaps back there the best possible chance for success.
All right, so take a look at this. This would be a year that Deshaun Watson, full year, has been with the Browns. 12 games, you see 204 completions, 341, 14 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. That's taken 37 sacks. We knew that's kind of issue. Rating 81.7. Now, not pictured here is that he's 8-4 in those games. And I know, one loss record isn't a quarterback. Bottom line is, you go out and you get a quarterback to win games. By my count, 8 wins in 12 games, 75%. You're going to a lot of playoffs and advancing in them if you're winning 75% of your football games.
Yeah. There's two ways to look at those numbers. You see those numbers, and you think of everything that gets thrown in our face. The Browns gave up 3 first-round picks, guaranteed contract, yada yada. Well, for that term, you're trading for a franchise quarterback. Are those franchise quarterback numbers? Not really. But can this team win with those numbers? Absolutely, and they have been. They've been doing just fine with those numbers. They've, beaten 3 teams by double digits. That was working. That formula was enough to work. And you were seeing them take steps and play well in high leverage moments at the end of games, which is franchise quarterback stuff. So he was giving that to you when you had to have it, just not over the course. The numbers weren't there. You want to see the touchdown interception ratio up more than 2 to 1. You want closer to 3 to 1. But 60% completion percentage. He's able to move things with his legs, keep plays alive. He was doing enough. He was doing enough to win. And for me, that is the bottom line.
Yeah, and you saw some things in that last game where he ended up getting hurt and knocked out for the year. You saw some things that you really liked in that second half.
Yeah, I mean, that's the franchise quarterback part. When he has the ball in his hands at the end of the game, you feel like he can go down and win it. That's exactly where they were at. And he was starting to grow into that. And it had been coming for weeks. And it was just starting to get going. And the timing of the injury could not be worse because now we have to hit pause on that, continue with the team, and then reconvene with him next year. And hopefully the knocking the rust off process won't take near as long as it did this time around.
All right, so this from Dog Pound Daily. 3 biggest questions remaining for the Browns at this point in the season. Can the Browns stretch the field on offense? That's a legitimate concern. Will they be healthy enough for the playoffs? Another one that's a legitimate concern. And number 1, can they get out of their own way? And those are all things that at some point in time you wonder about. I do wonder about stretching the field. And Dorian Thompson-Robinson, if he's able to play, that's still a concern. Joe Flacco can stretch the field. The question is he going to have enough time? Is he going to be upright long enough to stretch the field? Because he doesn't move well.
Yeah, is there going to be someone at the other end to catch it when he throws it that deep? You know, those are two things you have to look at. And it's just hard to judge it when you're playing musical chairs with quarterbacks to get any consistent rhythm and say this team can do this or can't do this, because it changes week to week depending on who you have as quarterback, what the game plan is. So, yeah, that is a concern. You would like to see Goodwin come back, especially if Flacco does get some time, because that would be a connection I could see. You know, and we know he'll throw it to Elijah Moore. Flacco loves tight ends. You can start to see a pathway. He is not mobile, and with you're playing with backup tackles, you know, and hopefully DeJuan is completely full strength and he'll be good to go the rest of the season. But you can't count on that, just given the injuries this team has suffered. So you would like to see someone with some mobility, and that's not Flacco's game.
Yeah, I'm with you. All right, Casey Kinnamon and I are going to step aside, take one more time out. Other side of the break, we'll talk a little bit more in detail about the upcoming game against the Los Angeles Rams. Friday at 4, Sports4CLE, or Sunday at 4. Sports4CLE, will be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to Go Forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns with Casey Kinnamon from Dog Pound Daily Network 216, the CBS Sports HQ crew, talking about the Browns against the Broncos and the Browns moving forward.
I don't think either guy, in regards to P.J. Walker or DTR, is the answer that could provide a significant postseason run. Best case scenario for the Browns, they're just trying to weather the storm to find a way to get into the tournament. But what happens is, Joe, it puts more pressure on the defense. They have to play flawless. Today, they didn't have their best effort. They surrendered 29 points to the Broncos. They only sacked Russell Wilson once. If they're not sacking the quarterback and creating turnovers, they're probably going to lose ball games because they don't have that type of playmaker at the quarterback position. In this league, it's okay for your defense to weather the storm week in and week out, maybe for 3 or 4 weeks. But when it gets close to December like football, that wear and tear, it shows up, not just from the physical, but from the mental as well. And today, they look like they were tired.
You saw it in the body language coming off the field. I mean, everybody's got another piece of kinesio tape on them or banged up here, low shoulders on Myles Garrett.
And Casey, it did seem like they were, I don't know if it was the altitude, I don't know what it was. Beginning of that game, they looked gassed at the beginning even.
Yeah, it's a different unit on the road than it has been at home. I mean, you can look at the numbers, and that's 3 straight road games. You find yourself down 14 points right off the rip. You know, so, but I think that this defense will embrace that challenge to be the reason why, especially in this short term. You're going to have to. If it's Flacco, you're talking about a guy who's coming off the couch. You know, they're going to have to pick it up. They're going to have to get after the Rams and be the reason why you win some games. And I think they understand they have that kind of talent. They can pull that kind of thing off. So I don't think they're going to be. It's not going to be a daunting challenge for them. It's going to be something they embrace.
Yeah, and again, the Matthew Stafford, talented quarterback, but not mobile. He will try to fit the ball into tight windows. He will, former first overall pick who's got more arm talent than he knows what to do with and isn't afraid to try to use it.
Yeah, gunslinger. You got to even think the year they won the Super Bowl, he led the league in picks. He will take chances. He will take risks with the ball. He believes in his arm. He believes in his receivers. Not mobile. This is a classic game for me. You just pin the edges back, get after him, and play tight man. Your cornerbacks can turn your back to Matthew Stafford. You don't have to worry about him taking off on you. So play tight man, get after him in the pass game. Hopefully Myles is good enough to go, but even if he's not, man, you got Za'Darius, you got Obo, your interiors. Just get after Matthew Stafford and force him into those mistakes. As long as the cornerbacks are getting their head around at the time the ball's coming out, there's going to be opportunities for interceptions in this game. Stafford, he will try to fit the ball into the tightest of windows. And they have some playmakers. You know, Cooper Kupp's banged up. I mean, I was banging the table for Puka Nacua back in February. Like, that kid can make plays. Kyron Williams is a problem. You know, they have some, the Rams can put up points. It's going to be up to this defense to put their foot down and show them that it's not happening on Sunday.
So this is interesting. It's from Jack Duff and Orange and Brown Report. Question is, how many wins do the Browns need to make the playoffs? With 8 wins, 1.5% chance. 9 wins goes up to 3%. 10 wins, 84.3%. And 11 wins, 99.6% chance. So that's pretty realistic, and I feel that's pretty spot on. So you'd need three wins, and there are 3 wins in there. You know, there's 4 or 5 wins in there if you play well enough.
Yeah, my mind's on that 11. I don't risk anything. The chance to improve your seeding and let's make a run at the thing. And part of it's probably the Browns fan PTSD in me, where we've had 10 wins and didn't get in. Now that's when there was only 6 playoff teams, but don't leave anything to chance. You know, if you win 4 of the next 6, you're going to get into the dance, and then, you know, from there it's anyone's game.
All right, let's look at this offense. What do they need to do? And again, I was a little surprised that they didn't go bigger more often. In bigger, you know, I mean, Nick Harris is your fullback. You play with 2 tight ends, and you just kind of roll DTR out and let them read and react.
Well, you've seen that they did that when they got in the red zone, and it worked to perfection. You know, you would like to see more of that, especially with DTR's ability to move around, and you can move the pocket a little and create mismatches, because your tight ends in those big formations can still cause damage. But it comes down to not turning the ball over and running the football. Those are the 2 things that this team needs to embrace. You have the guys up front to move the ball. Do that. Find these easy 3rd downs. Take long plays. Give your defense rest. So that you saw drag out of them. You know, they couldn't get off the field. So when the offense had the ball, if you go 3 and out, you're putting your defense right back out there. And that's when bad things happen. So take long possessions, keep the Rams offense on the sideline, and just bleed this thing out. You turn it into a rock fight. You know, you're built to win those kind of games, and the Rams are not.
All right, let's say they stack the box again. Do you go with an extra lineman and Nick Harris?
Oh, yeah, you could definitely see that. You could definitely see Hudson come in. And then at that point, it's got to be Njoku time. Like, it's unfortunate because he's been getting targeted like crazy the last 2 weeks, and he's been dropping the ball, and that's not characteristic to what he's done this season. I know over the course of his career, you could say he's had issues with dropping the ball, but up until the last 2 weeks, he's been pretty sure-handed. So you got to get him out of his own head, get him some early looks early, and kind of build his confidence, because he's someone you could utilize in that short and intermediate that can just change the game, especially when you go with big personnel.
All right, let's play the other side of it. DTR doesn't clear concussion protocol early enough. What does the offense look like if it is in fact Joe Flacco?
The Case Keenum version of the Browns. You know, heavy play action. You have to do whatever you can to kind of keep Flacco safe. He's not going to be back there moving around, causing havoc with his legs. It's going to have to be read and react stuff. I think Amari Cooper will get a ton of work. I think he'll lean on that because Amari's a professional, man. He's going to be at his proper depth. Flacco just trusting him, let it rip. Crossing stuff over the middle with Elijah Moore. When you go back to the Jets tape, that's where Elijah Moore was doing his damage when Joe Flacco was on the field, and he likes to do those deep crossers. So those are the 2 things I would look for. And like I said, heavy dose of David Njoku.
Screen game, because you know if Joe Flacco's back there, they're coming after him because if I know it and you know it, the NFL defensive coordinators know it, he does not move well.
Aaron Donald knows it. That's enough to keep me up at night. So yes, screen them to death. And you have different kind of screens you can do. This team has shown a great variety, and they've kind of went away from it. And you see that over the course of a season. You'll be heavy in the screen game for a while. You'll let it go away, kind of get it out of the opposition's mind, and then you'll have to bring it back at the right time. Well, this would be the right time. You do not want to be a sitting duck back there when Aaron Donald has his ears pinned back.
Casey Kinnamon, as always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Casey.
Anytime, Dave. Thanks for having me.
Casey Kinnamon, make sure you check him out. Always really good stuff. Dog Pound Daily as well as Network 216. We always appreciate Casey's time. That's going to do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. We will see you back here tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Have a great night, everybody. See you tomorrow at 4 on Sports for CLE.